The slow emotional thaw. So after awakening for me, it was a very paradoxical time where there was this tremendous ability to access consciousness and this sort of experience of pure being. And it was meditative. I could drop into it pretty much any time when I meditated. At the same time, the more I meditated, the more would kind of come up that was repressed material. I could say it was repressed emotion. I could say it was repressed beliefs and so forth. But ultimately, it was just sort of an energetic of resistance that was wrapped around a bunch of emotion, around a bunch of perceptions and so forth. And so it was kind of this thing where it's like I knew the more I meditated, the more I sat in that presence, the more stuff would come into consciousness, which is good. I instinctually knew that this was the process and this was the path to deeper freedom. At the same time, it's a lot comes. And for me, because this was 20 some years ago, I didn't really have resources. They may have been out there, but I didn't really know what they were to work with emotion, work with repressed emotion, do deeper inquiries and so forth. So it was more like a slow thaw, and it was fine. I worked my way through it. There was physical pain associated with it. There was a lot of emotion associated with it, but a lot of beliefs that came to light that were ultimately dissolved. And, it just happened over time. It kind of, sometimes I joke around, like it felt like a ball of frozen soup, just like this big energetic center of mass here. That wasn't always like that, but at times it was. And sometimes you don't know what to do there. It's like you don't know how to get any deeper into it, but you can feel it thawing. You can feel it sort of offloading the stuckness and the resistance patterns and all of it. And it takes its time and it works its way out. The good news, though, for you is now we have way more resources available, or at least they're more readily available, to work through this deeper realization. And here are the things that I find to be valuable in no particular order. These are things that you can consider trying yourself. But I'll just start with the one that doesn't seem as directly related, but it turns out it actually has a lot of beneficial effect, and that is the category is somatic practices. So whether it's yoga, like hatha yoga, whether it's TRE, trauma releasing exercise, trembling exercise, whether it's ecstatic dance, whether it's qigong, tai chi, movement practices of various kinds. These kinds of somatic modalities are actually really helpful to deal with and to integrate and to navigate one aspect of this, the energetic aspect. That may not make sense at first. It probably wouldn't have made sense to me years ago if you said that to me. Like, I don't get this thing about navigating and managing energetics, because it just, again, it was maybe too frozen or something at that point. But as you clarify, you'll know that this really is all about energetics. And to be able to just drop directly into the energetics of it and work at that level can be really helpful. Some people have described extremely profound transformations with TRE, which is an extremely simple exercise. It doesn't require psychotherapy, therapy. It doesn't require any specific directed emotion work. It doesn't require inquiry. It's a physical trembling exercise that is available to pretty much everyone that I know of. Does it work for everyone? I'm not sure if it works great for everyone. Some people have said they didn't get great effects. Some people have said they've gotten tremendous effects, but I've never heard of anybody who couldn't tremble. So you have access to it. Probably everyone does. But yeah, all the other things, right? The different kinds of somatic modalities, body work, energy work of various types, whether even relational energy work. It may be hit and miss finding the people who work well with you when you're talking about energy work in the relational field, but can be helpful if you find somebody who's really good and intuitive with it. So that's one category of ways to work with this stuff. The other is emotion work. Like, emotion work is a huge category of approaches and modalities and so forth, because so much of this really is in the emotion spectrum. This process isn't necessarily about becoming more emotionally healthy, although that's kind of an effect that occurs is we become more in touch with all aspects of ourselves, and emotion is a huge aspect of what it means to be a human being. So in the relative world, so we will get more in touch with emotion for sure, and we will get more clarity in the emotion space. We'll feel more comfortable with emotion, but there are all kinds of approaches to that. One simple approach is just labeling your emotions. Find out what you're actually feeling. This happens frequently where someone will tell a story of what's going on in their life, and they will identify one sort of big emotion they're feeling, but I'll say, what other emotions are associated with this? And sometimes they're like, they know right away, and sometimes it takes a little bit. But if we kind of go back and forth, we usually find that there are other emotions associated that they weren't completely aware of. And what I find is when we're not aware of certain emotions, that's when there's sort of a shadow space. And that shadow space can make things unnecessarily confusing and an unnecessary amount of resistance can be involved. So looking into that emotion space and going, what else am I feeling here? Oh, I'm feeling jealousy. Oh, I'm feeling grief. I'm also feeling grief, feeling helplessness, right? So just look around and see. And as you start to take this granular approach, you notice the different elements of emotion. They tend to soften up. They tend to separate out a little bit. They don't feel so stuck together and confusing. And also the resistance patterns tend to dissolve. The resistance patterns dissolve, I notice, when the emotions become more clear, more, I don't know how to say it, like each emotion almost has its own autonomy, maybe, instead of just feeling stuck in this sort of push-pull with other emotions and other resistance patterns. So just labeling your emotions, just asking, getting in the habit of asking, what am I feeling right now? Oh, I'm feeling disappointed. Oh, I'm feeling tired. Oh, I'm feeling resistant to being tired. I don't want to be tired. Oh, okay. Interesting. Oh, I'm feeling impatient right now, right? This could at first sound like almost like quote unquote negative to approach it this way. Like when you realize how many, that's why I say quote unquote negative emotions there are, because I don't actually view emotions as negative, but I know many people do. So I say it that way because when you start to ask, you'll be surprised how much is there. But it's okay. It's already there. You're not creating it. You're not making it up. You're just giving it space to come up into consciousness and to dissolve and to incorporate into the energetic field. And it can feel like it's never going to end sometimes. Like, man, I've revisited this so many times. It just keeps coming back again and again. That's okay. Notice when you start to experience that like it feels like a loop. It feels endless. It feels like returning to the same issue over and over. That's not actually accurate. So the thought is saying that. And the thought that's saying that is kind of a defeatist thought. It's trying to pull you up into the mind. It's just actually just trying to pull you away from the sensations. But the truth of it, from what I found, is the more times you go, the deeper you go. You get deeper and deeper into it. And there is a finite amount typically. It's not like you'll come to the end of emotion for the rest of your life, probably. You might. But for the most part, you'll find that certain fixations or vasanas or complexes of experience in the emotion space will have a lot of depth to them and have a lot of nuance and go way down into the roots of childhood and traumas and so forth. But if you explore deeply enough, they will dissolve. They will kind of disentangle and they aren't a problem. They don't have that gravity. You'll still remember the trauma. You'll still know about it, but you won't feel an intense charge around it. That's what I find. And then another area of life or another trauma you may address as well in the same way. But just know that like the thoughts will be really defeatist sometimes. Like, this is never going to end. I've been here so many times. Like, everyone gets these thoughts, by the way. I've been there many times. But if you just recognize, oh, those are the thoughts. Those are thoughts. Thoughts are trying to put this in time. This isn't in time. This is right now. I don't have to deal with the past right here. I don't have to deal with the future right here. There's no loop here. There's only this right here. There's only the sensations. And then you drop into what really, really matters the most with all this work is the actual sensations, until it's nothing but pure sensation. And when you're in the realm of pure sensation, there really is no problem, and you'll know there's no problem. They could be big sensations. They could be intense. They may be rather non-dual in the sense that you don't even feel a body map overlaid upon it. It just may feel like this big energetic charge. It may feel like a lot of energy moving through, releasing. It may feel almost like waves of ecstasy followed by waves of a kind of pain or something, uncomfortable. And yet when there's not resistance, when we're not putting it in time, we really only have to, in a sense, be present now. I mean, that kind of goes without saying, right? When can you be present but now? But in this very, very granular way, in this very direct way that this realization will lead you into, you learn a much more precise meaning of now, that it's really just now, meaning the slightest thought about the past and future and all of that in this moment will just feel uncomfortable. So just drop in deep. Just go deep, 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 deep. And the depth is what does the work. The depth. You don't have to know what's going on down there. You don't have to track it. You don't have to understand what's happening. just feel, just go all the way into the depths of those emotions. They may feel very center line chakra based for a while, like into the heart, in the chest, in the neck, in the gut. Somewhere it may feel contracted or pulled into that space, but just keep going deeper and deeper into it. And you can even inquire, what is this experience without a body map? What is this experience when I close my eyes, I don't see a body, I don't imagine a body, and the sensation is still here? Now where is it? You know, if you ask that question enough times, you'll start to see it's not actually where you think it is. It's not contracted in a body. Yeah. And this is when you start to really wake up in direct experience and realize there's a massive vessel for this. It's not even a vessel. It's an infinite space through which we're able to experience all of this. And that's when that deep, deep emotion work starts to become enjoyable. And you won't be worried about like how long it's going to last. It's more like, wow, there's a gratitude that you can just go that deep into it and that clearly into experience, into sensation right now, that it really has no particular boundary. It has no edge, no center. It has no need to be any certain way. It doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean anything about the past or the future. It has no narrative or story. It's just like pure energy, really. It's probably the closest thing I can call it, is just pure energy. It's very intimate. From there, there's nothing to do. There's nothing you need to do. There's no sense of doer. There's no sense of doership. There's no sense of acting upon anything. There's no past, no future. It's non-dual. So there's no space, no dualistic construct. And it's very tactile, right? The contact is thorough. And this is a good place to be. This is a really good place to be. And just keep an eye out for any of those subtle thoughts arising. And they're usually resistance thoughts. Resistance is fun to try to track down. May not be fun at first, but it can be fun to track down because it's so funny you never find it. What you find is a reaction to thoughts. And the reaction to thoughts is pulling you out of the emotion. And the resistance is a kind of magnet. There's a magnet that wants to pull you into the emotion, but the thoughts are trying to pull you back out of it. And that's uncomfortable, which is good. It's grace that it's uncomfortable. If that wasn't uncomfortable, then we could stay disassociated all the time. And, with mind identification, we can. But once you've woken up and that mind identification escape mechanism stops being a viable option, there's only one way to go now, straight down and in, as Adyashanti talks about. Down and in, redemptive love. You will feel this, as he says, and it's true, thoroughly. And it's a good thing. It's grace, ultimately.